let's talk about raising intensity with intensity techniques and tactics, not higher load. Because as everyone will find out, as you are making advancements in your training, becoming a better and better athlete, and have focused on increasing the intensity by increasing the load for a long time, done a lot of progressive overload with weight, there will come to be a point in which becoming more and more advanced doesn't mean raising the weight, but making the training harder by raising the intensity through advanced training techniques and methods. And there are many ways of raising the intensity besides adding weight, such as with HIIT, high intensity interval training, which actually lowers the weight in order to raise the intensity so much more. And while adding load to straight sets may be a great way to stimulate fast twitch muscle fibers, it can only be done for so long. And after you've focused on growing the fast twitch muscle fibers, you're going to want to focus more on slow twitch fibers. And after you've focused on the big heavy compounds and the big muscles that work them, you're going to want to focus more on smaller muscles. And after you've focused on bulking, you're going to want to focus on shredding and definition. So following this pattern of approaching training by doing the bigger, more general basic stuff first, and then getting more specific and making the training more difficult. We're going to start with basic movements and training techniques, and then we're going to go into more advanced and intense ones. And the basic goal of raising intensity is to push your RPE and relative effort higher, and basically to make your training more brutal and hardcore, to really increase your hypertrophy stimulus and shock your muscles, as Arnold Schwarzenegger likes to say. Now, there are several techniques and tactics for raising intensity, which we call intensity tactics. First is supersets, which come in two varieties, antagonist and agonist, which I'm going to get to soon. The second is rest-pause sets, or also known as cluster sets. The third is drop sets, and what is called running the rack, where you use a whole bunch of weights, like the entire rack. You start at one weight and work your way all the way down. And the fourth is occlusion training, also known as blood flow restriction training. This is where you train with tourniquets on either your upper arms or your upper thighs. And then fifth is doing sets of fast, high rep partials with constant time under tension, cutting out the lockout. And then six is interval and circuit training and doing alternating sets, such as with HIIT training, and basically anything that makes your training much harder and more difficult. So when straight sets aren't enough, which they most often will be, for most compound movements that you can go heavy with and do a lot of progressive overload, straight sets will be enough. But when they aren't, or when you are limited by loading, and you can't go past a certain point, and you want to continue doing progressive overload by raising the intensity in other ways. That is when you would start incorporating sets with intensity techniques instead of straight sets. And this is perfect for really shocking, stubborn muscle groups that aren't growing as fast as others. But these should only be used for exercises that the technique will continue to target the target muscles with, and not be limited by grip, central nervous system fatigue, respiratory fatigue, connective tissue, etc. So these only work when there's no other limiting factors besides your target muscles. So for instance, you wouldn't want to be using these types of techniques with squats or deadlifts because your low back would go out. You would injure yourself doing that. So with squatting and deadlifting and other exercises like them, you would want to focus on raising intensity through loading and going heavy and keeping those reps low, okay? You wouldn't want to be doing drop sets or, supersets with them. So these intensity techniques are best done with exercises that target smaller muscle groups and slow twitch muscle fibers, in which you're doing 5 to 30 rep sets with lighter or moderate loads, low stimulus to fatigue ratio, low joint and connective tissue fatigue, and low lactate threshold. Okay, so for instance, machine exercises and cable exercises are perfect. Isolation work is perfect. Any exercises that you generally do light or find easier to do are perfect with these techniques. Okay, and intensity techniques should be done ideally at the end of a mesocycle or training block of progressive overload, and towards the end of your session as well, as they are very fatigue inducing. So these techniques are for maximizing your progressive overload at the time you are supposed to be doing so, and again with a rest period afterwards. Now you need to be careful of doing these with too heavy of weight or with the wrong exercises or body part, as you could hurt yourself. Okay, so if you have any questions or concerns about this, please leave them below, or you can email me using the email address in the description below. All right, but Some examples of exercises that are good for intensity techniques are side lateral raises, curls, tricep extensions, machine bench press or machine rows, leg press, calf raises, and lunges, or the types of lunges that you are good at and find easier. As you know, different lunges might be harder, different might be easier. And again, the exercises should not have any limiting factors. All right, so whatever those exercises are for you that you are very good at and find to be easier with less limiting factors, well, those are the exercises that you really want to amp up the intensity on.